Before we get started, let's give a big shout out to all our patrons. Starting it from the top here.
At the top.
Get ready. It's sort of long.
Is it?
I like to think it is, all right? Big shout outs to T. McCaleb, Jason, Mark, Travis, Andy, Taylor, Grant, Robert, Sue, Holly, Ken, Baron, Nick, Brian, Christian, Brad, Colin, Andrew, Ethan, Ryan, T-Mac, Nick, that's the second Nick, Lady Palatena, Scott, Tyndall, Matthew, and Allison.
We really appreciate all the support you give the show.
Yes.
We couldn't do it without you.
Absolutely.
Boring, emotionless. Boring to the point where I was looking forward to see the bad guys to get some emotion in there.
You said boring and emotion twice.
Hey, I didn't write the review.
I said he, she, it, whatever.
I have nothing else to watch right now, so I'm watching this.
What? Oh, come on. There's so many things out there. One Piece is right there.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
The people who dare to say Boba Fett and Obi-Wan was bad need to get a life. There is something very wrong with their critical thinking. I see no brilliance in this unless being a robot is your thing.
Oh,
Wait, what?
my gosh. Did he just say Obi-Wan and Boba Fett weren't bad?
I think, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to end him.
That
Wherever they
was
are.
a one-star review from IMDb. Hello and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm your host, Andrew, joined as always by Ryan.
I'm here.
And Steven.
I am also here.
You are. So I really wanted to
Thanks
read
for
that.
affirming me there. I feel affirmed.
Steven's force projecting into the room.
I really wanted to read that whole review, but it's very long, but it's totally absurd.
I'm sure it sounds like it's off the rails.
It was already going off the rails, so, you know.
So we are talking this week about Ahsoka Season 1, the whole series, and also final episode recap.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you've been listening to our episode recaps, this is a recap of that final episode and our review of the whole
I heard
series.
you like recaps, so we put a recap in your recap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a Disney Plus TV or Disney Plus series. I'm not even going to say TV show. Streaming series. There we go.
Yeah, it's not a TV show because it could be an iPad show. Or
Yes,
a phone show. Don't do that.
Ahsoka, which definitely takes place in the Star Wars universe after the Battle of Endor, Return of the Jedi, and takes place nebulously after season 3 of Mandalorian.
Is it after season 3 or after season 2?
It's after season 3 because they mention Moff Gideon and him being defeated on Mandalore.
They did mention him on Mandalore.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
I'll say
right.
it was
Yeah.
definitively after season 2 because we have Morgan Elsbeth. But
Yes.
it's definitely,
Okay.
that did places after
Correct.
season 3.
So this is the synopsis for this very deep into Star Wars TV series.
How much do you know?
Yeah. Former Jedi Knight Ahsoka Tano investigates an emerging threat into a vulnerable galaxy. That's it.
I mean, it's not wrong.
Is that even a synopsis?
Yeah. So the big thing here is that if you are now just tuning in to this is the only episode you've listened to and you haven't watched the series for whatever reason, if you have not watched Rebels, Clone Wars, all of Star Wars, and
Apparently Mandalorian
season
1 through 3.
2 or 1, 2, and 3, you're probably going to be lost.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. At least you have to watch Star Wars.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If you came into this like this is the first Star Wars thing you've ever watched, that's buck wild. I don't even know what you would think about.
I know, right? So we're going to talk about obviously season 1 as a whole here and the final episode that we just watched. We watched it, sat down.
Do we want to
in front of our
recap the
things.
episode first? We want to talk about our overall spoiler-free
I think
thoughts?
we should probably talk about our overall spoiler-free
Okay.
spoiler-free thoughts.
Say that 6 times fast.
Yes. So this
Make it 8.
season has an estimate or a general speculative budget of $100 million-ish.
Total.
Somewhere in there.
So we're talking like 13 million-ish an episode.
Yeah, 13 to
12
15.
and a
That's
half.
how much Mandalorian cost, and Andor was about 12 to 15 million an episode. So it's in the
the same
Pretty
ballpark.
in
Same
line.
ballpark. mark. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say visually it looks as good as Andor. Like it has the same like polish to it.
This
does.
is a very polished. This feels much less confined, like Obi-Wan felt at times, and Book of Boba Fett has felt at times.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and Mandalorian, yeah,
yes.
like all of those use the volume very heavily, and they definitely use it in here too. But I think that they've learned from some of their mistakes as they've made these series.
And so for people that may not know what the volume is like this set on Pinewood Studios. It's like a big curved area where like they can
Projection
basically,
screen.
it's not even projection, it's like LCD, like, but they can put basically Unreal Engine 3D graphics and stuff on it. They can basically
What if you
populate
were
it
the
with
Halo?
Yeah, what if
put
you were the
PS2
Halo? Yeah.
PS2 graphics in there.
No.
PS1, let's go.
Pac-Man comes and goes, hama.
Waka,
No, but
waka,
like
waka, waka.
that way the actors on the set, they're not being green screen, they're being shot in front of basically a
big
curved
monitor.
video monitor, and
Yeah.
that can extend the set and it can
Well,
make
and when you have like a show like The Mandalorian where you have very reflective armor, they don't have to go in and edit out all the
composite,
green
it would
and
be
redo
a
it.
nightmare
It just reflects.
It would
the
just
scene.
be
that out.
It would
Yeah.
actually be impossible to do
It'd be-
that.
yeah, it'd actually
just
be
absolute
impossible.
nightmare.
So I think to the point though, like they use the volume in this, but
do.
you can't really tell it as what I feel like especially in Obi-Wan, there were moments where like I can tell they're shooting this on the volume.
Yeah,
like it looks
They
like it.
they understood that when you have a scene that has to take place over more than a 20-foot area, you need to do something other than the volume or some other
Yeah.
solution. Like we have with the Obi-Wan, we had at least one or two moments where it was just like
And he ran to the edge of the volume
he can't really, or he
Yeah.
can't run because he can only cover the distance so fast. So he's like walking fast. It's like, bro, you got to be like any kind of hurry here or
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought this season as a whole was very good, if not a little uneven with some of its pacing. Where like the first like 2 episodes are, I'll say, average to kind of slow, which is fine because you do need to have setup, and then you have like the 3 middle episodes, which is basically 4, 5, and 6, are just
Bangers.
just
Really good.
like
Bangers.
perfectly paced, fantastic peak Star Wars storytelling.
Yeah.
And then last week's episode 7, and then this week's episode last week's was really slow and nothing happened. And then
Right.
this one felt like the first half should have been last week's episode.
Kind
and
of,
then
yes.
this week should have been spread out a lot more just to give us a little bit more time with some of these situations that our characters have gotten ourselves into.
100%.
And then we also had a bit of like a Return of the King syndrome at the end where we had like 5 false endings.
There are a lot of endings. Yeah. And we're going to get
Yeah.
into that a little bit more on the actual episode. recap, but
But I mean, like, I think overall, I think this was definitely probably below Andor for me,
For sure.
above basically everything else.
I would say season 1 Mando might be above this just because it was more consistently good.
I mean, sure.
Or maybe season-
Well,
yeah.
I think because season 1 Mando was
season
more
2
anthological
Mando.
or anthology style. So where like you
Right.
didn't have this burden of this massive overarching story that you had to fit everything into.
Right.
So the storytelling as like a per episode basis was better because you didn't have
have to
all this
connect it to
extra
everything
stuff
else.
to connect with.
I just feel like coming out of season 1 of Mando, I was very high on Mando. I was like, that was great. Coming out of like Andor, I was like, that's like the best Star Wars I've seen since Rogue One. You know, coming out of like Book of Boba Fett, I was like, kill it with fire, leave me alone. Coming out of this, I'm mixed because there's definitely like the season starts off slow. And it does start off with like the assumption that you've watched Clone Wars and Rebels, which I have
a
not.
lot of
Yeah.
prior
So
reading here.
I had a lot of like, who's that guy? Why do they care? What happened? What happened between them? You know,
Yeah.
like kind of like, and the writing does at times feel like a kid's show to an extent. It got better in the middle. I agree with you that like 4, 5, and 6 was killer
like
episodes.
probably some of the best Star Wars we've just had.
some of the best
period.
lightsaber fights,
in
like
general, yeah.
yeah, and then the end of it, I agree. It kind of slowed down. Last week's episode was almost unnecessary, and then this episode was like equal parts good and kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
just because I feel like it. I don't know. Like overall, I walked away from the season enjoying it. Like I like Ahsoka a lot.
Yeah.
It's definitely better, but it's not. I don't have the same feeling like I did at the end of Andor.
Yeah, where
I
you were
was
like super hyped
I
and
was-
just
yeah.
like,
ready
let's
to like
go,
run through a
fight
brick
the
wall.
Empire.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this season, it's not as good as Andor.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but it is more Star Wars than Andor is.
Yeah,
It
in a
is.
sense.
It is. Yeah.
100%.
It's definitely up there with the best that Mando had to offer, and certainly just makes
Yeah.
Obi-Wan and Boba Fett shows look kind of clown shoes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe for me, like the comparison to Mando season 1 specifically, or even 2, like with those seasons, you don't have required reading to go into it almost. Like you need to be aware of Star Wars to a degree. Obviously that helps. But with this, I felt like having not watched Clone Wars and Rebels, I literally felt like I was missing out on context and like emotional beats.
This is definitely a show more geared towards the hardcore fans.
Like super
people who have
diehards.
been in it for years at this point, right?
Yeah.
So, and that does show too, because from what I've seen as the season has gone through, we're on episode 8 now, the amount of viewership has actually been less than Andor from general estimates.
Really?
Which Andor was already incredibly low compared to like Mandalorian and Obi-Wan.
Did it go down over the season, or was it
probably?
Okay.
It's hard to tell because
They don't release numbers,
they don't release numbers.
Right.
But I mean, I would believe it just in the sense that when you talk to people about Star Wars, everyone knows who Obi-Wan is.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who Boba Fett is.
Yeah. Everyone knows who the Mandalorian is.
Well, they do now. After the initial thing, they did. But at first they may not have, but they hooked you like hard enough at the start.
Like I could ask my father, who is a massive Star Wars fan, who Ahsoka was. He could never. There was no way he would be able to tell me who she is.
Yeah, like once you get into Andor and Ahsoka, you're getting into much more tertiary. Characters, even though honestly, as far as the hardcore fandom is concerned, Ahsoka has been
a main
one of
line
the tentpole characters for forever now, because she's Clone Wars, Rebels, which was
for over a decade,
sustained people basically from the prequels ending until the sequels started. So, but overall for me, you can't say that the season crashed and burned at the end, because I think by the time we got to the end, it wasn't moving fast enough to crash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it got so slow and almost safe.
I think that I think the actual problem is that it finally turned into a mainline Star Wars show.
Yes.
To where all of the cogs and all of the connections have to come together, and they just don't know how to put them all together without it making it feel really clunky.
Yeah.
And just kind of ham-handed with just like, okay, now we have to have a fight where they're fighting a bunch of stormtroopers and just like a little hallway where they all have their lightsabers out. We're going to do that for 2 minutes. And then let's move on to the next thing. Now they have to have an escalated fight. You know, those kind of things where like you have the traditional Star Wars tropes, especially ones that come from like Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yeah.
And now we have to just put it into live action, and sometimes it just doesn't translate.
Yeah. Okay, so we're flirting with spoilers. So let's just go ahead and... We've got some basic opinions on the season out, right?
Yes.
Let's go ahead and... You want to put a spoiler wall here?
I mean, we can.
You want to make it hard and just go straight into the episode recap?
You want to do it?
Sure, why not?
Okay. All right, if you want to get stranded on a planet with a bunch of content just roaming all over its surface,
you wonder where that was going to go.
You got to set your coordinates for spoilersintendedpodcast.com, where you can find
a good segue.
A different galaxy.
Thank you. You can find all
galaxy of content.
Yes. You can find all of our previous episodes, plus links to all sorts of stuff like our Patreon and our Discord.
Yeah, so we do have a Discord that you can come and join us. It is completely free. All you have to do is just make an account, sign up, and log in. And the cool thing is that we have a bunch of channels for stuff that we're discussing, particularly like Ahsoka or new TV shows that are coming out. Also, we have channels for what we're cooking, what kind of games we're playing, Starfield, more Starfield.
A lot of Starfield.
A lot of Starfield,
what are you listening
it's Baldur's Gate 3 for me, baby.
We also have links on there to our socials. That's Facebook and Instagram. We post on there every week, both teasers, new episodes, where to watch, stuff that we're prepping for future episodes. So if you want to jump on, follow us there, and leave us comments and likes.
Yeah. So just keep this soundtrack going, because we're going to already past the spoiler wall now.
Okay, that was the spoiler wall.
That was it.
This is the spoiler wall. I want to talk about this particularly good section of music done by Kevin Kiner.
We're cranking it up, baby.
Just listen to this. This is kind of that theme that kind of encapsulates everything that I love about Star Wars, because whenever this moment hits, especially I think it's episode 6, maybe 5, whenever she's talking to like the Purgle whale.
Oh,
space
yeah.
whales.
Yeah.
And you have just this kind of massive emotional climax. This is this happened so many other times in like just other Star Wars, franchise films and stuff that they really did such a good job of creating this kind of moment. And it wouldn't be as good if it wasn't backed up by Kevin Kiner's music.
This music here. And we started, if you've listened to all of our other per episode recaps, we started out complaining about the music.
Yes.
And then we stopped complaining about the music and we started praising it like whiplash, like real quick all of a sudden. We were like, wow, this is really good all of a sudden.
Well, yeah. I think their use of music was kind of like the writing and kind of like the pacing. It was uneven. Like if they had kicked off that first episode with
like that
music,
theme?
yeah, like I feel like there's easy to tweak ways to make this season much more consistent. And that is like kick the music in like that earlier. Have some of the awesome, lightsaber fights we got mid-season earlier
that were phenomenal.
Yeah, like they should have kicked it off
with a very poor lightsaber fight to start for plot reasons.
For plot reasons, yeah.
Still not get the high points that we would have liked.
Yeah, well, and speaking of Kevin Kiner, because then we can go into like the rest of the plot stuff and the rest of spoilers, but he did all of the music for Clone Wars and Rebels.
Okay,
and
I didn't know that.
Whenever or definitely Rebels.
Double check.
He probably did a lot of the episodes, but maybe not everything.
I remember whenever I started watching Rebels, I was like, oh, this is someone, like they came to someone and they were like, hey, we need you to make Star Wars music, but not really Star Wars music. It's just a good imitation. And he did a good job with it.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So he did Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch,
so he's done pretty much all the animated
He's
stuff.
been doing a lot of stuff here.
And definitely as he's gone through his Star Wars, library, he has definitely learned his craft. And now this, like, instead of feeling like an imitation of John Williams, this actually feels like an addition to
it's a very
the
distinct
Star Wars
feel.
suite.
Yeah, which I appreciate a lot, that it's in the same way that a lot of the themes that we get with Ludwig Göransson in Mando have their own distinct flavor.
But with just a little bit of callback every once in a while.
Yeah, his stuff leans more into what I would consider classic Star Wars, while still being very distinctly apart and its own entity.
Yeah.
And I've really loved it.
Yeah, especially in this
Ahsoka
last episode, there was like a couple of chord progressions that started, and it was like, ba. I was like, and then it didn't. I was like, oh, okay, all right, I see what you're doing.
They still had the Force theme in there every once in a while, just as like a little motif.
Yeah.
But overall, I think he's done a fantastic job, and they've used it really, really well throughout the season.
Yes.
Yeah.
And outside of like the first like episode and a half, pretty much like everything else has been really on point for the music wise. That I think has really augmented some of those bigger moments.
Yeah, for sure.
So, do we want to just go ahead and call this the full season discussion?
Let's just do a quick recap of that last episode. Okay, so like, what did you think about it in general? Just the last episode.
Very uneven.
Yeah.
Just because, like, again, like it felt like all the cogs were trying to like sync up.
All the initial setup that we got in this episode should have been in episode 7.
Definitely.
And then episode 8 could have just been a banger. Yeah.
So I feel like too, part of the tension of this episode all hinged on Thrawn not leaving just yet. Right? And I feel like, didn't we just...
The Star Destroyer goes at the speed of the plot.
Well, last episode, or was it the episode before? I think it was last episode. He made the comment of like...
Once they're done.
Let's just go. Like, we'll leave them here. Like, they're stranded on this planet. We're going to go back. And then like, she's like, all right, we're done loading stuff up. And he's like, okay, well, let's send out some TIE fighters and maybe check out and see what the Jedi are doing. And it's like...
strafing run.
Yeah, and I was like, no, just... buzz out.
Well,
like, go for it.
The other thing
you got
is
it.
Like, they were like, all right, we're done. All right, bring the hyperspace ring down. It's like, you couldn't have done this like a while ago?
Two things can happen at the same time.
The hyperspace ring can be sitting there while you're loading the cargo.
Yeah.
You can be locked in, ready to go.
Yeah. The second that last box hits there, close up the doors. Boosh.
Grand strategist, my butt.
Yeah. Hyperspace from in atmosphere. Who cares? We're leaving. Boosh.
They already do it in other Star Wars.
Oh, right. Okay. Now, hold on. Whoa. All right. Let's slow our roll here. Let's not get into that kind of heresy.
I mean, it is canon, sir, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Also,
JJY.
at the front of Phantom Menace when they run real fast. I had that thought when like Ahsoka was like, it's going to take us longer to get back. I was like, not if you speed run like at the front of Phantom Menace. It's a thing. It's in the universe.
Be like, Anakin taught me something he learned from his master, Obi-Wan. He said, only use it in the time of greatest emergencies.
She makes the Roadrunner noise, beep, 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 and just takes off.
So speaking on that, like, I didn't like how seemingly close they were. Like, I mean, I understand that dorses are faster than just like walking or running.
Dorses are the wolf horses, by the way, for those who haven't listened to our
They're
recaps.
technically called howlers. I'm going to call them a
No,
dorse.
they're dorses.
They're dorses
They're
now,
dorse.
baby.
But the thing is like, so wherever they were, like with the hermit crab people, and then they got attacked by the TIE fighters, and then the Jedi Starfighter got knocked down, and then they're like, oh no, it's going to be, you know, harder for us to get to the thing. Actually, it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. I used another channel's thing. I'm sorry.
No, don't
How dare you
apologize.
cross promote?
For someone who's so much bigger than us. That's how it's supposed to work.
To me, I think what that needed, right, is they needed to have had on the past, like episodes, let's say 6 and 7, you know, there should have been waypoints.
Yes.
Because basically when they leave the temple, it's just wander weird
Barren
wilderness
wasteland,
and then you're there.
Yeah, they
with
could
that.
have just been over on the other side of the ridge.
But like, okay, not to compare it to the Neverending Story, but
Whoa.
think about the Neverending Story at the end though, when he's riding on Falcor, he rides past all
Every
the places
single,
that he's
they've
been,
been, yeah.
right? Like you see every single spot that you've gone throughout the story.
Yeah.
If we could have had like, I don't know, like distinctive
Just landmarks.
places where Sabine gets ambushed.
We passed the ambush.
If it could have been a distinctive place, not just generic, you know, like wasteland.
Yeah.
Then the first place where we find Ezra, if it could have been a distinct, there's a cool cliff or something, you know.
Instead of just empty
Then
nomad camp.
when you hear Thrawn say like, "There's no way they'll make it back," and Ahsoka and they get
And
on
they're
the
just
back
like
of these.
immediately on the ridge.
Well, they get on these dorses and then they're like, I'm talking, getting it, you know, like cutting every corner.
What if we're force
cutting the
speeding up
trees.
the dorses?
Yeah, like they're just like they're using the force to jump across a chasm with the Dorse, and the Dorse like, I don't know what's going on. And he lands. That'd have been great. Like then you have like they're passing by all these points that we've seen, and you get the sense of like, oh, they're closing the gap. They're only 2 spots away from being back.
Yeah.
You know, and then you could cut back to Thrawn. And he's like, there's no way they're there or something. You know, he's like, bring the ring down. Let's go. You know, you could have added so much more to
Tension,
it instead of just been like they warp over here. Now we're
Could
here.
have also, by having them like force push the dorses over chasms, we could have set up
Yes.
the end of how Ezra actually gets onto the
100%.
destroyer with
Yeah.
Sabine's help. Sabine could have been getting some practice in right
Ahsoka
then.
could have been like, push your Dorse over the cliff. And she's like, I don't know if I can. And then she does. And the Dorse looks at her like, I trust you. And she pushes it and it works. And she's like, I
Well,
can
and
do
that's
that.
the
I don't want that. Let's just have her observe how it's done.
No. She pushes the Dorse. The Dorse looks back like, thank God it worked.
But that's the thing is like if we would have had a lot of this early part of the episode in last week's episode, we would have been able to fit in maybe some of these kind of
Some room
moments
for
in
that
here
stuff.
to add in some extra tension because
But like the thing is, it's not like Disney is constrained by a runtime. They don't have to fit ads in here. They don't have to.
No.
The servers can't handle the extra 10 minutes of. Like
And
I know
yet-
now pacing it could suffer, but the pacing's already kind of all over the place.
yeah,
so,
I don't
like,
know. It's very tough because like I don't think this finale episode was disappointing.
No.
But I also don't think it was inherently satisfying something like Andor's season finale or something.
No, because it ends on like a cliffhanger and like you
It's
feel
unresolved.
it.
I mean, it's
You-
unresolved.
You feel it shifting into like unresolved cliffhanger.
Unresolved is totally fine because the ending of Empire Strikes Back is completely unresolved and it is incredible.
Sure.
I mean, fair, but it's also like the lowest point for our heroes.
That's what you want.
But this is not really presented.
Yeah,
as
this isn't
low
really the
point.
lowest point for
No,
our
yeah,
heroes.
that's the thing. They're just kind of like, well, we're here.
They
That's
just
fine.
they just
Let's
oopsie
live with
daisied
these snail folk.
they oopsie daisied swapped Sabine and Ahsoka for Ezra, and in the process sent Thrawn back. This isn't an even trade, people.
Right, yeah.
Well, and then like I guess Ezra can just manage to get off of the Chimera without being chased or
He's
followed
just
or
that
anything.
They just
good.
glossed right over
He's
that.
just like
that
and just
good.
bing bang boom. I'm back at the fleet, baby.
He got the comm link, said thanks for telling me reinforcements are on the way, boys, so I can just disappear. I
Which
don't
is
know.
even harder to believe because Thrawn is on this ship with like, I don't know, 10 guys left and like 4 ships. Like resource management is high on this guy's list. He's looking around. A ship just goes, now hold on.
He's like a competitive StarCraft player where he's like 900
Micromanaging.
actions per minute.
He's like, wait a minute.
10 Marines, and I have to defend against 40 Zerglings. You go here, you go there. Attack plus move. You go here. Attack plus move.
I can't spare.
Let's go.
Step back.
Yeah. Like so, you get 3 people, and this other dude in Stormtrooper armor walks onto the bridge. He's like, hold on, Jim's been dead for months. Where are you coming from? You know, like
I need the keys to one of the spaceships, please. You know, it's like, no, not how this works. So that felt very kind of glossed over. But
did.
For me, it was the episode itself. Once it hit the point of, okay, now we got to show you 8 vignettes of where things are going to go. It shifted and like all the tension fell out of the room. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a much better way they could have done it. It could have ended on like Ezra being like, you know, they go to, you know, the I was about to say our galaxy. It's not our galaxy. It's back to the Star Wars galaxy. Yeah.
And like in particular, which was a fantastic shot, by the way.
There were some phenomenal, like the TIE fighters launching with Thrawn in the middle. Another phenomenal shot. Thrawn, why don't just leave? Don't send out TIE fighters. But cool shot.
But it could have been to where like he was like hiding this, you know, body of the stormtrooper, putting on the armor when they launch, and he's like, that sounds weird. What is that? Like maybe he doesn't even realize they're in hyperspace. He's like, I've got to stop it. And he gets up to the bridge, and that's when they come out of hyperspace, and you realize, oh no, they've made it, you know, to Earth, and then they end on a cliffhanger like that instead of him stealing a ship conveniently.
Well, all you really need is like one
drama.
little. You just need one scene of him just kind of sneakily hiding in the docking bay, like looking at the shuttle. And then just so we have some level of context whenever we see it in the fleet, and we're like, oh, he must have gotten off. And maybe we'll, you know, get some kind of background or something like that.
Well, especially because all of their little shuttles and their stormtrooper armor have like unique, you know, markings and the gold and stuff. If it could have had like a very specific, you know, thing to it, it's like, oh, there's that one. Then later when we see it land, it was like, oh,
that's what it is.
But then that spoils the dramatic reveal of Ezra coming out in full stormtrooper armor.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense.
Take it off, like
the drama.
What are you doing? Like,
So the other thing too is I think the little false endings at the end, they should have moved it to where the final scene that we get, where, you know, obviously they're kind of looking out and you see Anakin as a Force Ghost looking over them.
After the owl, we had the owl too.
Well, but that whole scene, both of those could have been just bookended together and not be like split in between other stuff, because it removed the whole reason. Like, I don't know.
So explain the owl.
I don't know.
What is the owl?
It's a motif that pops up in, I think, Clone Wars and Rebels. Where
it's her spirit animal.
It's kind of her spirit, like it's like almost a sign to her from the Force that she's on the right track from some other big. It's so difficult to explain.
I thought it was a porg.
You did think it was a porg.
That would have been great.
You were like, why is there a porg over there? I was like, it's the owl.
They're on the Jedi planet that Luke was on.
Our friend and patron, Nick White, said in response to me making a comment in our spoiler channels about this, he said, as soon as it hit, I was like, oh, I'm going to hear about this.
The owl.
Yeah, because he was like, it's not really that important. It just kind of shows up every once in a while. I was like, oh, there it is. There's the owl.
Now it's important.
Now it's important.
It's just kind of her sign. It feels almost like it's her sign that she's on the right track in the Force, in a sense. Like she's moving in the right direction.
Still feel like that could have been set up earlier in the season.
This is something, again, that if you haven't watched Clone Wars, you haven't watched Rebels, the owl appears and Ahsoka smiles at it, and everybody else is like, what is going on?
But they could have very easily done that when she makes the decision to get on the Purgles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she could have looked over and saw the owl and been like, we're getting on these whales.
The right call.
You know?
So one more thing before we move on to just talking about the whole season is you can definitely tell the absolute vacuum of not having Baylan or Shin in this episode.
Boy, okay, so I'm not gonna lie. When when Sabine is trying to make the decision, do I jump to Ezra or not? And you know, Elsbeth tells Ahsoka, "You're going to die here alone," and Ahsoka says, "Not alone." I was like, if Shin leaps out of the shadows with a change of heart right here, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh no, it's just Sabine. Okay.
Well, and so like Sabine, I really thought she was going back with Thrawn, like when Baylan left her. Like I thought that was kind of
you
like
mean Shin.
Sorry, yeah, Shin.
Going back to the
Going back to with throwing them.
And she just went to the wandering scavengers.
I know.
and
She's
gave
like
him the signal that we all know of: ignite the lightsaber and hold it over your head. And they're all just like, "What do you want?"
Yeah, I would have loved it if they
dominance. Like I don't understand.
if they cut back to the dudes and they looked at each other like, Do you
understand? I don't speak that language.
They're not from this planet, so I don't have any kind of.
Yeah, so is she going to be like the leader of this band of mercenaries, or like I don't know?
Come back and that guy just waves at her.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, nice to see you too. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a minute.
Yeah,
and then we also have, of course, Balin going
standing on the Arhonath.
What is the Arhonath?
That's the
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, the big towers at the.
I was like, I don't know this Star Wars term. Oh, that's because let me switch file systems here. It looked like his dad behind him too. I was like, is this his family home? Like, what is this?
Yeah, which I don't. Okay, let's just go ahead and move into full season talk. And
let's go.
I don't understand. So we have not yet been told for sure there will or won't be a season 2.
Correct. We know that there's going to be the skeleton crew, which we don't know where that fits in, if at all, to anything that's already now.
There's supposed to be another season
of Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, not Boba Fett.
And then what's the Acolyte?
Not Boba Fett. The Acolyte's something totally different. That's going to take place in Knights of the Old
Republic. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's supposed to be a movie at some point that caps off Mando, Ahsoka.
I really hope that we get another season of Ahsoka instead of just a movie with 2 other franchises.
So that would be a very bad decision to do a movie that rushes.
It's worth saying. So Rosario Dawson has said, I hope this is well received and it does well because that means we get to do more of it.
Yeah.
They also, if we want to put our tinfoil hats on big time, they posted Disney, Star Wars or whatever, put out a Instagram post of, hey, tune in tonight to watch the series finale, right? Then they deleted it and put it up, and it says season finale.
Okay,
so it's like I honestly expected that episode to end, and it said season stick 2. Around for season 2.
Season 2 incoming.
Yeah,
or something.
So I personally think we are going to see a season.
I sure hope so.
Story-wise, how do you make any of this work otherwise?
They set too many threads up to be wrapped up in a movie.
Well, we had
that's not just solely about Ahsoka. Maybe it's an Ahsoka
6
movie.
hours long.
Yeah, we had a bunch of endings that are all beginnings of other storylines.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
because that's the thing, especially with Balin. Obviously, Ray Stevenson did pass away.
That's the other concern is.
I think you just recast him.
Because I am so interested in his character and what's going to happen.
Yeah, I want to know. So maybe we have some file footage and whatever he's going to, we do the Palpatine move, horribly disfigures him.
You could do that, or honestly, you just straight recast him.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. It's not, Star Wars and Disney have not figured out how.
He looked so cool.
No, I know.
His beard was incredible.
Well, and then he had the kind of like the cloak at the end there.
Yeah.
I was
He skinned his doors.
He skinned that doors. He had that cloak. I was like, this looks so cool.
But yeah, okay, so series as a whole.
Yeah, less season 2 speculation. Full on.
Yeah. I mean, I really do think that this was a good season.
Yes.
Agreed.
I think it's just inconsistent. I think this season starts slow, ramps up like crazy in the middle, and then kind of ends kind of slow
it's
again.
also worth pointing out, right? So Obi-Wan had some pretty high highs.
Yeah.
And some pretty low
and
lows.
Very low lows, yeah.
It had some high highs. It did not have, even its lowest points were nowhere close to what Obi-Wan or Boba Fett.
So its lowest points were just kind of clunky.
They were just kind of that didn't land as well as it could. Kind of like Ahsoka tumbling in CGI, right?
Yes. So if we're using the Mandalorian coefficient, so basically the low parts of Ahsoka are probably just as good as anything from season 2 of Mandalorian, better than season 3 almost wholeheartedly, and the really highs of this season were probably higher than season 1.
See, I feel like season 2 had some of the higher points for Mando because that's where you actually saw Ahsoka and
you had some fantastic moments,
some highs in there.
Yeah, you had some really good moments in there, but I think we had the return of whatever character, I can't remember his name, that Luke
Bill Burr,
Skywalker.
No, that Bill Burr plays.
Oh yeah,
where he had more backstory.
What are we, stormtroopers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he had more backstory than all of the
it's
sequels.
it's really more that Mandalorian had a hard time becoming a Star Wars story and not becoming an anthology of just
The problem
stuff.
I had with Mandalorian was every time it tried to really veer close to Star Wars is when it got worse.
Yep.
It was anytime they were doing their own thing, I was in for it. I was like, yeah.
Well, and I think that's kind of how this season felt too. Was like, obviously you have characters that are Jedis and have lightsabers and stuff, but all of the really high moments had very little to do with like the overarching Star Wars plotline.
Right.
And they were all very smaller characters like Baylan and Shin and characters that we haven't seen before that we had even
or characters that haven't been in mainline movies, right?
Yes.
Like Ahsoka, for as big as and important as she is, hasn't been in a mainline Star Wars film. Ezra hasn't. Sabine hasn't.
Yeah.
Hera potentially gets called out. Even that's not technically a mainline Star Wars film.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I do feel like Ezra, for example, like the reveal of him and their reunion was like very lame for me.
kinda flat.
It just felt flat.
That does track with the type of characters that they are.
Then they're lame characters. Then like they need to punch it up. Like for someone that hasn't seen
Show
Clone
me
Wars
some
and Rebels, like when I
emotions.
get to that part, I was like, that's it. Like this is your reunion.
This should be. I mean, you gambled potentially the galaxy.
Yeah, you gambled
to
the
find a friend
galaxy.
you haven't seen in almost a decade. Or
Stranding
whatever.
yourself on the other end of the world, like you saddled up with the enemy, and then you're just like, hey,
Hey, how's it going?
and I'm like, what? And so like,
So you see the move is you put your hand on her shoulder, you go, hey.
but like, I guess I was just wanting more out of that moment, and I guess I feel like they didn't do enough early in the season to really give us the full
pay that
context of what their relationship was. Because like at first I was like, so did they date? And then I was like, were they just
There
buds?
was romantic tension.
There's some romantic
Right.
tension between
So
them. But you don't
they-
know that unless you watch Clone Wars.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like it's
Rebels, but
very easy to just give us a couple of offhanded comments, a couple of scenes, a couple of like moments to like really set it up, and then you could have paid it off with having never seen Clone Wars or Rebels.
See, that's my
But they didn't do
biggest complaint about the start of the season is it didn't start fast. It wasn't bing, bang, boom, action,
Yeah,
right?
no.
It started out kind of slow. Like, well, that's a great time to really build up some of the expectations for normies.
Yeah.
People who haven't watched, however many seasons, like 7 seasons of Clone Wars or Rebels.
Sounds right.
Something like that. There's like 10 seasons of animated shows out there or whatever. You don't have to watch all of it. But you need to watch a chunk of it to get some of this.
Yeah.
But they could have built a little bit more of that, so then when we hit it, it pays off.
I'm curious, who is your favorite character from this season?
Ooh, I like that. Hu Yang.
Yang.
Hu Yang.
Man.
And he had some great moments in this episode.
You want to talk about someone who is just handed all the good lines? Hu Yang.
100%. And like David Tennant was a perfect casting.
just killed
skill.
it.
Which
Yeah.
he's the voice of Hu Yang in Rebels?
I believe,
is he?
I believe
Yeah.
so.
I'm pretty sure he voiced it. I'm pretty sure Hu Yang was in Rebels.
Yeah, he
Are
was
you looking
in
up
Rebels,
that?
but I know David Tennant.
I'm
did
pretty
the
sure they
voice.
brought the same voice along.
That's
I think
awesome.
Andrew's looking at it. right
I'm
now.
looking it up.
I mean,
Okay.
Lars Mikkelsen, Thrawn, was the voice of Thrawn.
Yeah, he's in Clone Wars.
Oh, I didn't know he was the voice.
Yeah,
of
he's the
Thrawn.
voice of Thrawn in Rebels, and then they just
Wow.
cast him.
just
in.
cast him, yeah.
I mean, it's perfect casting. Yeah, he did. Really good.
He's phenomenal, honestly. Just
mean,
the whole way he talks is great.
I would like to say Balin's skull is my favorite character, but it's only visually.
We didn't get enough.
Like we didn't
of
get
him.
enough meat on the bone of like what his whole deal was.
I
so.
want Balin to be my favorite. character.
Same with Shin. Like Shin's awesome, but like
Shin Hati is awesome, and I really want her to be in other stuff.
right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
want
I want her to be the new Mara Jade.
characters to go
Right.
further. They just have to, actually show us them on screen there for a little bit.
Yeah. Mary Elizabeth Winstead did pretty good as Hera, I thought.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
See,
she.
I don't think anyone did poorly.
No, I liked her portrayal as Hera. It was that they didn't give Hera.
She just
enough
kind of
to work with.
It wasn't even. It wasn't the right stuff.
She's
Like
stuck in the political bureaucracy
Yeah.
BS, and that's it. Like, this is what you
Yeah.
get.
because when
Okay.
she was like, we're taking the fleet, like round them up, get the boys, let's go. I was like, yeah, like that kind of stuff was good. It was
and
just
whenever she was searching for Ahsoka,
Yeah.
that was fantastic too.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of like, all right, you're going to go back and deal with bureaucracy. Sweet.
yeah, they just sidelined her
Yeah.
immediately, and I
we
was
have to talk about C-3PO. There you
kind
go.
of, and that was a weird cameo too. Let's talk about that because we didn't mention that at all in our recap.
So him actually,
C-3PO's cameo,
Oh, yeah.
which was Anthony Daniels, by the way.
right? Yeah.
But him,
it's the right call.
him actually being there didn't bother me at all, just because like C-3PO would be at the heart of the Republic at that point in
Right.
time.
It was more or less. It just felt like out of left field, kind of like
It did. Well, I mean, they obviously didn't telegraph it at all, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a lot better choice than having creepy CGI.
For a million
even like
percent.
having
Yeah.
even like having like Carrie
side
Fisher is in
shot.
like in
Yeah.
like even like a over the head shot or something. I don't know. That would just be really weird.
I just don't like that they kind of set it up like, here's a big reveal, and then he walks in. I would have much preferred it because that to me feels like nostalgia baiting.
Yeah,
too much.
it is.
I would have much rather them like set it up in like one of the earlier episodes when Hera is there and she's about to argue to do this. He's in the hallway.
Yeah,
and he's
just passing
he's just
by
kind of
or something.
overhearing.
Yeah.
oh yeah, General Syndulla, you know, and he says something to her, and he's like, I've got to go because
because Miss Organa,
Senator
has to,
Organa or whatever her position was at that time.
She sent me on another errand.
Yeah.
And then
boom.
later he pops up with an errand. Okay, cool.
Later he pops up and I'm like, got it. Instead they like play it like, and this star witness will prove my case, kind of that thing. And then he comes walking in. I was like, oh, it's C-3PO. Because I thought, I was like, they're going to do Carrie Fisher CG. No, don't do it. And then like C-3PO comes in like, oh, okay. And then he basically was like, get out of jail free card. Nuh-uh. Leia said he could do it. And everybody went, neener, neener. And then the scene ends. And I'm like, okay.
And this is kind of the same issue that we ran into with Mandalorian Season 3, where just kind of stuff happens, where it's like, if you just give us one scene, like, an episode ago, then we don't have anything to say.
It's the difference between when you look at old Star Wars versus like not so much the new Star Wars, to an extent, like the sequel.
It's
trilogy.
more modern storytelling.
Well, it's the old Star Wars would not have treated C-3PO walking in as any big deal. He'd just be walking in, he'd say his line, and this one almost treated it like,
Look at
it's
3PO.
member berries from South Park. Remember C-3PO? Here he comes, and it's like that's how I felt about like Ghostbusters Afterlife. The whole movie was like, remember the proton pack? And it's like they didn't even talk about it this much in any of the previous movies. Like we've spent 4 minutes on a longing shot on the side of a proton pack. They just threw them on in an elevator in the first movie, So it's the same idea. Like they shouldn't treat these characters that we know are huge as if they're huge in the universe.
At this point, right? Like Mon Mothma sees 3PO, it's just a Tuesday, right? Like,
hey, bud.
how's it hanging? Yeah,
yeah. Because
Keeping
she
you
has to
working?
be working with Leia Organa the whole time. Like
One would assume,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know. Like
Stuff like that's odd.
I liked the season overall. It definitely peaked in the middle for me.
It did.
And there's just
the
a
wrong
bunch
time
of
to peak.
right. It felt it was like they turned it around after the first few episodes, and then they kind of turned the car back around, but not all the way.
But that's the thing, though. I think it's not that they did that. I think it was more on the lines of they had to take their story and fit it into Star Wars at that point. And every time you do that, because Star Wars is this massive machine, it's really hard to get it in there safely without being like, I'll say either overly dramatic or too like haphazard with it.
Well, I think the key is like you look at something like Andor, right, where it takes place in the Star Wars universe, but it doesn't have a lot of the little, like you're talking about in the last episode with like, now we have to fight a group of stormtroopers, bring them in, like a lot of the like checklisty type stuff doesn't really happen in Andor. There's some stuff, but it's not as like prevalent. So like, I think you just got to commit to like, we're not going to do some of these things. We're going to do our own thing, and it's just going to be we have a vision that's strong enough that it will fit. It's just we're not going to do the checklisty stuff we have to do.
I did like zombie stormtroopers.
I was just about to say, we didn't hit on the checklist we hit that was unique, which was stormtroopers
Zombos.
rise from your grave.
I like that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And then, but this is another where the inconsistency
kept going,
hits.
yeah.
Is that they rise from their grave, and I'm like, oh, okay.
This is dangerous.
This is
Except it's
dangerous.
not.
We need to get out of here. And then I was like, what are they going to do with this? Nothing. They're just going to close them up in a room.
Close some doors.
Okay. Because
Moving on.
Then when the three Night Sisters quit doing their spell or whatever, another group, I think it's a second group
It's
of
a different
stormtroopers.
group, yeah.
But the way it was edited, I was like, wait, are they just now back alive normal?
Not zombies? Yeah.
Let's unpack that. That's a whole other can of worms. So it had a brief moment where I was lost of like, I thought it was the zombie stormtroopers were now back to being alive and we're just normal dudes. And I was like, wait, what? Because they didn't drill down on how any of that worked. And,
So do we think all the cargo that Thrawn was putting on, one reason why he has Dathomirian mothers with him is because all of those are actually caskets of dead people and they're going to make an army?
It's got to be. They look like caskets.
That's the only way.
Right?
That's the only thing that I
They're
could think
actually
of.
bombs.
There's no way.
I don't know.
Not with the defunct Star Destroyer.
No.
Yeah. And they're not even good bombs. They're just
Yeah. And now they're at
Little
Dathomir,
grenades.
Average,
which,
yeah.
Right. I mean, that's Maul's home planet as well, right? So like
I believe so.
we have the Night
Pretty sure it
Sister
is.
stuff
Yes.
with just like Morgan Elsbeth and other Dathomir.
Oh, she
So,
was her fight with Ahsoka on
pretty
the
good.
was really well
pretty good.
choreographed. Like
Yeah.
they have even had like one pretty nice wide shot.
Yeah, when they
go
let him
back and
just
forth,
go
like,
at it.
twice, and I was
Yeah.
like, ooh,
Yeah.
ooh.
I was looking at, is that stunt performers? Is that them? Like, that's
Yeah.
really good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
Well, I'll just say like this gives them another angle into potentially finding more Force users or whatever. I don't know what's in these boxes. I
like,
assume it's bodies,
what's
but what
in the
kind
box?
of bodies?
Presumably,
Yeah.
it's a bunch of Night Sisters, right? Like, or like
Night Sister Rebellion. I don't know.
maybe it's like Dark Jedi or Sith or something.
We'll
like,
find
It
out.
wouldn't be Sith.
okay.
Dark Jedi would be the correct term.
Okay.
It could
Yeah.
be Sith from before the Rule of Two.
That's not how this works. According
used
to
to
the
be-
Star Wars universe.
It used to be the rule of 200.
What about the Rule of 2000?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like that too could have been like teased
Better
a little bit more.
explained.
Not explained, just
Well, at least-
give me a nugget of
Well,
like
they've
what
done
might
enough
be.
I'm fine with it
teasing.
not being
They've done
explained.
enough
Yeah.
teasing that we're talking about it.
Sure,
Yeah.
So
true.
like mission accomplished. If you want a season 2,
Yeah.
that's your hook right there.
Yeah.
Of we don't know what his actual plan is once he's back
Right.
in the
Yeah,
known
and
universe.
I'm totally
right?
fine without knowing his grand plan. Besides just make the Empire rise again. Like
Right. Well, I was surprised when
make the
they
Empire great again. There we go.
they
I did
went
it.
straight to MAEG. Mega.
TEGA.
Yeah.
Matega.
I was
Anyways.
when they came in, to the Star Wars galaxy, and I was like, oh, they're at Dathomir, because I on Jedi Fallen Order, you go to Dathomir for a huge section of it or whatever. And I was like, I can't wait to see what they do with that. Like,
Yeah.
how much of it they're going to show. Like, and again, what are they doing there?
Yeah.
Like, presumably they're going to get some other Night Sisters and they're going to revive all these bodies.
Maybe
for
the
a purpose.
3 of them can't do it alone. They need to have a whole bunch of others.
And
But like, what? We're rampant speculation. But
That's
like,
fine.
what bodies are they? Are they his fallen troopers? Well, you just have the stormtroopers. That doesn't help anything.
No,
so it
yeah.
had to be something more, right?
if anything, they're worse stormtroopers.
Well, I don't know. I mean, those two zombie stormtroopers at
okay,
the end.
that's true. We
Okay,
had
yeah.
two
That
full-on zombie troopers
and
just
those
going
were
ham.
yeah. And outside of just plot, relevance, then
Yeah.
they were pretty formidable. And
They
if
were.
that is what we can expect out of however
cool.
many things.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a problem.
a problem.
And I've harped on it a couple times in the recaps, but we never learned about the guy that died, the Inquisitor. That just got
he's
cut.
he's just a
He's
night.
just a
Night Sister.
resurrected.
Shin
Night
screamed when
Sister.
he died. She had an emotional reaction to him passing, and I was like,
Ryan's
"What does that
nev-
mean?"
Ryan's never
Well,
gonna
so what
let
I'm
this
saying
go.
is like, are these people related to that somehow?
So I think
Is
the
it-
only actual thing that we really had no final conclusion for is who was taking care of Sabine's cat.
While she's gone.
While
This is
she's gone.
important.
It's
She
a
went to a
cat.
whole different.
She left out a galaxy's worth, like a month's worth of food. It just eats it every day. It's fine.
Yeah, no, this is an important fact.
This-
She
I
went
think
to a
this is an
whole
important fact.
different galaxy.
Yeah.
Someone better be taking
Someone
care
better
of
be
that cat.
taking care of that cat.
Yeah.
right,
What if-
let's-
see,
let's-
that would have been a good thing if when Ezra first saw her, where's your cat? Who's taking care of your cat? You came all the
Or
way
like,
here.
instead of it being, which again for the Rebels fans, right? Ezra meeting Hera again is a big deal. What if instead of our false ending there, Ezra's not dramatic and he's just at Sabine's outpost and he's sitting there with
Feeding
the
the
cat.
cat.
Or what if he
Right?
opens the door and he doesn't know she has a cat and he's like walking around it, like yeah, and that's where that scene cuts. That'd be great.
Okay, so season 2 speculation because I feel like there's almost no way we don't get one.
I sure hope so. I
Okay.
really don't want it to be turned into a movie.
I really want, obviously on.
It's going to be continued with a book. Don't make
I
me
want-
read words.
Shin to fall in with this group of outlaws.
I either want it to be that or I want her to fall in with Ahsoka and Sabine.
Yeah, that's what we really need right
and
there.
because I want her. I want to have the full spread of all the Jedi or Dark
Yeah.
Jedi or whatever Ronin as
There we
as-
go, yep.
Yeah.
as Thrawn would call it. I want them to hero shot. That's what I
all
want.
of them?
What
Okay.
we need, see what we need in season 2 All right, we get back to the known galaxy, and we have 3 Dathomir Night Sisters ready to face off with. We've got 2 female Jedi
Sabine,
ready to go.
Ahsoka,
We just
and now
need
Shin.
Shin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I do want Shin to be a warlord for a little bit, though. Okay.
I mean, that's fine.
That's fine.
Well, that's the thing. We have Balin and Shin on
They're separate worlds, separate quests
on,
here.
Yeah, and they're separate things,
Yeah.
but they're still on the same world with Sabine and Ahsoka. There's definitely something there
Yeah.
that they have planned.
right. There's something's got to happen.
And the
there.
spirit owl is flying around, and
Right.
Anakin's ghost has also found this galaxy. This galaxy is not a secret to anybody. It's all I gotta
Well,
say.
I don't think him
just
traveling
messing.
matters at that
Just
point because they're both
No.
Force entities. They can be anywhere they want at any point.
It's not like you have to get Force Ghost Uber to like, can you take me all the way over?
You
Yeah.
learned that from Qui-Gon Jinn because he's the one that used Force speed.
Yes. Yeah. Here's how you do it. It's real easy.
But yeah, so the other big thing too is Thrawn is at his best whenever, obviously he is 4 steps ahead of whoever he's, squaring off against. And clearly that is going to be set up to be Hera and the Republic.
yes.
Yeah.
And not obviously Ahsoka, which Ahsoka and Sabine have their own
there's gonna be
pilgrimage that they have
some
to go
amount
through.
of time before
Yes.
they can call a Purgle back to give them a Jonas ride
whatever, yeah.
However they get.
Yeah.
However, it's gonna that they bring whatever the power Balin
Yeah.
finds is, right?
But yeah, so now we have Hera and the Republic versus Thrawn, who is now back in the main galaxy, and that's where season 2 is really going to go, which I'm excited for. I think that would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Hey,
It'd be
give
cool.
Give me some space battles.
Oh, yeah.
Get some X-wings out there, pew pew.
I tell you what would be
two.
cool is if they have like a heist where they have to steal this hyper ring and then go get Ahsoka. And like that's the thing. It's like Hera and Ezra and they're all like
because they're done with the hyperspace ring now. They don't need it anymore,
Right.
And so it's just there. So we got to go ahead and get it.
The right way to do it is, if you're Thrawn, is just destroy it.
Well, of course,
Right.
if you're smart with Thrawn.
Yeah.
But the ghost just zips on in there and just straps into it.
yeah.
Chopper's out on top, holding 2 strings together.
That'd be
All right.
great.
So that sounds like we are kind of wrapping
We're
up.
certainly running out of things to say at that point. Yes.
But before we go, we have to talk about our Patreon for $1 a month.
$1 a month.
So
You get
expensive.
access to all of our previous bonus episodes, plus at least 1 bonus episode a month. These are a different format than our regular episodes. We go off the wall. We have tried to figure out which U.S. presidents we could beat up in a fight just by looking at their presidential
always-
photos.
Abraham Lincoln?
Their
No,
their
not at all.
Not a
No.
chance. No. We always promote that one because it is fantastic.
It's
Another
really, really fun.
fantastic one would be ChatGPT. where
I was just thinking
we
the
let
same
the
thing.
AI give us movie titles, and we try to come up with plots, actors, casting,
Oh, yeah.
big moments in the movie, and it gets
wild.
wilder and wilder.
It was. You also get access to our commentaries, which is kind of Mystery Science Theater 3000 style. Like you play it on the podcast and play the movie on your TV, sync them up, or your computer, whatever. And then, yeah, it's like we're there in the room with you with commentary. It's a lot of fun. And then we also
Witty and
have
fun things.
Patreon Picks Polls,
Yes.
where you get to pick what we're going to cover. And that episode is timed exclusive for patrons, and then it hits the main feed. So all that, $1 a month.
Yep.
Indeed.
So that does sound like we are wrapping up. But before we go, we'd love for you to just toss us a like, a review, a share on any of our posts, wherever you listen. That would be fantastic. But until next time, I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended.